They found that it had many, many other medical applications in addition. It was one of the most amazing discoveries which they had come across. But they asked me to purify the enzyme, and we found that the more we refined it, the less active the product was.
Still, something in this enzyme, this bromelain solution, was giving its crude preparations potent pharmacological properties. In 1972, after many discouraging years of research, Dr. Heinecke would finally identify this mysterious ingredient as a new alkaloid, to which he gave the name zeronine. Years later, he would successfully patent this same substance. Convinced of zeronine's positive health value, Dr. Heinecke set out to find a food source that could be viably used as a food supplement for the benefit of the masses.
Here was this tropical island with many plants which I had never seen before. And among them was a strange green fruit called noni. And the Hawaiian people told me that was a very important medicine. When I had tested it, it actually had more material than did the pineapple. And years later, I had noticed that the critical ingredient in the pineapple was decreasing. I remembered the noni plant. But of course, we had thousands of acres of pineapple, and there were only a tree here and a tree there of noni fruit. So I never considered that as a commercial possibility.
Based on the findings of his research, Dr. Heinecke would publish key articles in several scientific journals. Within only a few years, these articles would spark the interest of a man being led on his own journey of discovery.
Through the initial discoveries of this fruit, I realized the great potential. And it was when I came across a paper by Dr. Ralph Heinecke. He described in this paper the mechanism of how and why it works. Steve and I, we were in the business of finding health food supplements. The next thing I knew, I was in Tahiti to research the possibilities of developing a juice from this fruit. Everywhere I went on the island of Tahiti, the most interesting things happened. The native Tahitians began telling me stories of the nono fruit, how it helped their grandmother or their grandfather, their aunt, their uncle. I met with several medicine people. They told me how this fruit had been handed down from generation to generation. They showed me in their books how it was in most every recipe and remedy that they had written. But there was still a major obstacle. There simply wasn't enough fruit to support a large company. Through a translator, however, I learned that there was a super abundant supply of the nono fruit on the islands of Marquesas, nearly 1,000 miles away. I was very nervous about that trip to Marquesas. The trip was so costly. I had to employ 2 translators so I could communicate. Steve and I, we didn't have a lot of financial resources. We had just failed in another business. There was so much at stake. Upon arriving on the island of Nukuhiva, my worst fears were realized. The word no-no means mosquito, and the word noni in Marquesas means the fruit. So I had made all these preparations and spent all this money to gather mosquitoes. I asked the translator, I just want to go home. The translator says the plane doesn't return for 3 more days. So I decided we'd get a Jeep. We would start driving around the islands to see if we could find some fruit. The next 2 days, my mind was just filled with self-doubt, discouragement, wondering how I'm going to explain this to Steve. We spent all this money for nothing, for mosquitoes. It was at the end of those 2 days. We were driving on the island, It was in the afternoon. We stopped at the edge of the road to rest our legs. In the sky was large, white, billowing clouds. My eyes were drawn to that sight, so I walked across the road, and there was a large ravine below. It was a stunning sight. The valley was just full of this fruit. As I looked at that valley, immediately I knew that we had all the fruit we needed. At that moment, I was blessed to have an impression that this fruit had been preserved from the world. It wasn't a secret, but yet the world didn't know about it. The next thing was to find the right partners. I knew if we could find the right partners, nothing could stop us.
And find those partners he did. Soon after rediscovering the secret of the Noni, John Wadsworth was joined by Stephen Story, Kerry Acey, Kim Acey, and Kelly Olson. The gift of Noni had been handed to a new generation and to a new set of stewards. From across the wide Pacific and into the Rocky Mountains of Utah, what would become of this precious gift? What would these new stewards, a company called Tahitian Noni International, do with this awesome responsibility?
We are heirs. We have become part of this story. And I have to tell you, we can't think of the history of Noni without feeling emotionally tied to every single person and event that has taken place, since, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago when it first became noticed by man.
This is their fruit. This is their culture. This is their life. They're actually giving to the world the very best that they have.
There were things put on this earth by our Creator that help people, and I think that Noni is one of the best of those things.
It's something that you shelter like a child. You're trying to raise it up properly. It's a stewardship.
It's like you've got this huge diamond, and it's like you got to take care of it and protect it and build it.
I'm very blessed to be just one of the 5 guys, and I sometimes feel like I'm the weak link. I feel like they're brilliant and they're good men.
There is virtue in business, and there's a place where men can come together and cancel their pride to do good. That's why I love these men.
They're passionate, they're believing, they're hopeful.
It's not just us, the 5 of us who started the company. Now we have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of partners all over the world who are now part of that and stewards in their own right.
We look at the distributors as the real heroes and heroines in our story, and we look up to many of them.
We knew there was something special here, but we had no idea just how fast it would grow and how many lives it would touch.
Today, we're in 62 countries, and we have offices, we have cafes.
We reached $1 million in sales faster than any other company in our industry. We're among the top 3 or 4 fastest growing companies of any kind in the United States in the last 20 years.
We've caught the attention of the world because of the fabulous growth that we've had. We have only begun.
Creating jobs and doing good with something that blesses their lives. That's Tahitian Noni juice.
Tahitian Noni juice. As the first Polynesians had carefully nourished the Noni saplings so that they would bear fruit in abundance, so this new generation of caretakers would invest the skill and knowledge of dedicated researchers and scientists. The result is Noni in its purest, richest form. Tahitian Noni juice.
Tahitians didn't have scientists or biochemists to tell them that the Noni was good for them. They knew about it intuitively. They heard it from their grandparents and their uncle and the village elders and the medicine people and so on and so forth. And so, we have an added benefit today because of our modern world, the research and so forth has been done. We have the benefit of knowing why it works.
I've been going to Tahiti for 10 years now. When I first went over there, the monetary value of this fruit was 0, absolutely 0. Today, it's the #1 export of French Polynesia.
Our company starts on these tiny little specks of sand and rock and mountain in the South Pacific with all of these people who are harvesting the fruit and packing it sending it on to Tahiti where it's processed, and it eventually ends up in the refrigerators and cupboards of people all over the world.
In fact, I just returned from there, and they would come up to me after these small meetings that we would have with these harvesters. And after the meeting, they would come up to me, and with tear-filled eyes, they would express to me and ask me to take back to the distributors their love and their appreciation.
For thousands of years, Noni offered the islanders of Polynesia a different kind of life, a better life. Now that the new stewards of Noni have brought Tahitian Noni juice to the world, people from every land are experiencing a different kind of life, a better life.